Sometimes the most life-changing moments happen when we least expect them. Megan Richardson thought she was simply getting a glass of water from the kitchen when she overheard a conversation that would shatter everything she believed about her pregnancy, her marriage, and the people she trusted most. What started as an ordinary Tuesday evening became the beginning of a journey that would test every relationship in her life and force her to question whether the people closest to her had her best interests at heart. The sound of hushed voices from the living room made her pause at the kitchen doorway, glass still in hand. The word she heard next would change everything she thought she knew about the baby growing inside her and the family she was about to bring that child into. Megan Richardson stood frozen in the doorway between her kitchen and living room, the glass of water trembling slightly in her hand. At 7 months pregnant, she had gotten up to satisfy yet another craving for ice-cold water, but what she heard from the next room made her stomach drop in a way that had nothing to do with morning sickness. Her husband David's voice carried clearly through the evening air, speaking in the low, careful tone he used when he thought she couldn't hear. "We can't tell her it's a boy, Mom. You know how she's been about this whole gender reveal thing." She specifically said she wanted to be surprised. Megan's mother-in-law, Patricia, responded with a dismissive laugh that made Megan's skin crawl. "Oh, please, David. She's being ridiculous about the whole thing. I've already bought so many beautiful dresses and pink accessories. If she finds out it's a boy, all of that money goes to waste. Besides, what she doesn't know won't hurt her." The glass nearly slipped from Megan's grip. They knew the baby's sex? How was that possible? She had been very clear with Dr. Martinez at every appointment that she wanted to wait until birth to find out. She had even made David promise not to ask when she couldn't make it to one of the ultrasound appointments due to work. "I don't feel right lying to her about this," David said, but his voice lacked conviction. Megan specifically told the doctor she wanted to be surprised. She's been so excited about not knowing. Patricia's voice turned sharp. "David Michael Richardson, you listen to me. Your wife has some very unrealistic ideas about a lot of things. This gender reveal obsession of hers is just another phase. She'll get over it. But if she spends the next 2 months preparing for a girl and then has a boy, she'll be disappointed. This way, she can enjoy her pregnancy without any stress." Megan pressed herself against the wall, her heart pounding so hard she was sure they could hear it. Her own husband had lied to her. For weeks, possibly months, he had been sitting through her excited conversations about wondering whether they were having a boy or girl, watching her browse through neutral baby clothes and paint swatches for a nursery that could work for either gender, all while knowing exactly what they were expecting. Besides, Patricia continued, "I've already told everyone at church that it's going to be my little granddaughter. Can you imagine how embarrassing it would be if I had to correct that now? Mrs. Henderson has been knitting pink booties for weeks." David sighed heavily. "I just think Megan should have the choice to know or not know. It's her body, her baby too." "Our baby," Patricia corrected firmly. "David, you're going to be a father. It's time you started making decisions like one instead of letting your wife control everything. She's hormonal right now. You know how pregnant women get. They don't always think clearly." Megan felt tears burning her eyes. Patricia had never been particularly warm toward her, but she had never imagined her mother-in-law would actively work to deceive her about something so important. And David, the man she had married 2 years ago, the man who had promised to always be honest with her, was going along with it. "When did you find out?" David asked quietly. "Dr. Martinez called me yesterday after your appointment. Megan had put me down as an emergency contact, remember? He thought I should know in case anything happened during delivery and you weren't available. He mentioned it was a boy when he was going over some medical details with me." That was a lie, and Megan knew it. She had never put Patricia down as an emergency contact. Her sister Emma was listed for everything medical. But Dr. Martinez was Patricia's golf partner's husband, and Patricia had ways of getting information when she wanted it. "So what exactly are we supposed to do?" David asked. "Just let her plan for the wrong gender for the next 2 months?" "We're not letting her plan for the wrong gender," Patricia said with exaggerated patience. "We're encouraging her to plan for a girl. I've been dropping hints for weeks. Haven't you noticed how I always steer the conversation toward girl names when we're together? How I keep showing her pictures of pink nursery themes. Meghan thought back to recent conversations with Patricia. The woman had been unusually interested in discussing names lately, always bringing up variations of classic girl names. She had also been very generous with gift suggestions, all of which had been feminine clothes and accessories. At the time, Meghan had thought her mother-in-law was just excited about becoming a grandmother. Now, she realized it had been a calculated campaign. I bought the most beautiful christening gown last week, Patricia continued. It's been in my family for generations. Every Richardson baby girl has worn it. I can't wait to see our little princess in it. What if Meghan asked me directly about the gender? David asked. You do what you've been doing. You tell her that you don't know because you haven't asked. Technically, that's not even a lie. You didn't ask, Dr. Martinez. I found out through other means. Meghan closed her eyes, feeling dizzy. The level of deception was staggering. Her husband was parsing words like a lawyer to justify lying to her face. And her mother-in-law was orchestrating the whole thing like some kind of elaborate con game. I still don't like this, David muttered. You don't have to like it, Patricia said firmly. You just have to trust me. I've been through 3 pregnancies, David. I know what's best for expectant mothers. Meghan is already stressed about work and the move and everything else. Adding gender disappointment to that could be harmful for the baby. Meghan's hand instinctively moved to her belly. She wasn't stressed about the gender. She was excited about the surprise. But hearing them discuss her mental state like she was some fragile child who couldn't handle reality made her feel sick. Besides, Patricia added, lowering her voice even further, this will give me time to gradually prepare her. I can start mentioning how wonderful boys are, how much easier they are than girls. By the time the baby arrives, she'll be happy either way. You mean by the time she finds out it's a boy at delivery? David asked. Exactly. Trust me, in the excitement of meeting her baby, she won't even care about the gender surprise being spoiled. She'll just be grateful for a healthy child. Meghan had to grip the doorframe to keep from sliding down the wall. They were planning to let her go through labor and delivery, believing she was having a daughter, only to surprise her with a son. They were going to let her experience one of the biggest moments of her life based on a complete lie. What about the nursery? David asked. She's been planning to wait until after the baby shower to decide on themes and colors. Oh, that's perfect, Patricia said, sounding pleased. I can guide the baby shower toward girl gifts. I've already talked to Emma about coordinating some things. Meghan's breath caught. Her sister Emma was involved in this? Emma, who had been her best friend since childhood, who had been her maid of honor, who she told everything to. Emma knows. David asked, echoing Meghan's thoughts. Well, not exactly. I just mentioned to her that I had a feeling it might be a girl, and suggested she might want to encourage guests to lean toward pink or purple gifts. Nothing specific. Relief flooded through Meghan. Her sister wasn't part of the deception, just being manipulated like everyone else. But the relief was quickly replaced by anger. Patricia was using Emma's trust to further her scheme. I should probably head home, Patricia said. Remember, David, not a word of this to Meghan. And please try to act more enthusiastic when I bring up girl-related topics. Your lack of engagement is starting to look suspicious. Meghan heard footsteps moving toward the front door. She quickly backed into the kitchen, her mind racing. Should she confront them? Should she pretend she hadn't heard anything? Should she call Dr. Martinez and demand to know the truth? As she heard Patricia's car pulling out of the driveway, David called out, Meg, where did you go? I thought you were just getting water. She took a shaky breath and walked back into the living room, trying to keep her expression neutral. I was just standing in the kitchen for a minute. The baby was doing gymnastics, and I didn't want to move. David smiled at her, the same warm smile that had made her fall in love with him. Now it felt like a mask. How are you feeling? You look a little pale. Just tired, she said, settling onto the couch beside him. What were you and your mom talking about? For just a moment, she saw something flicker across his face. Guilt, maybe, or fear. Then, his expression smoothed back into normalcy. Oh, just the usual. She's excited about the baby. She keeps trying to guess whether it's a boy or girl. Meghan nodded, testing him. What does she think it is? She's convinced it's a girl, David said, not meeting her eyes. You know how she gets when she has an idea in her head. The casual way he lied to her made Meghan feel like she'd been slapped. This was the man she had promised to spend her life with, the father of her unborn child, and he was looking her in the eye and deceiving her. "What do you think?" she asked quietly. David shrugged, finally looking at her. "I honestly don't know. I'm just excited to meet whoever's in there." He reached over and put his hand on her belly. "Boy or girl, this baby is going to be so loved." The irony of his words wasn't lost on her. He was talking about love while actively lying to her about their child. She managed a smile and covered his hand with hers, but inside she was falling apart. That night, as David slept peacefully beside her, Meghan stared at the ceiling and tried to process what she had learned. It wasn't just about the gender reveal anymore. It was about trust, respect, and the kind of marriage she thought she had versus the kind she apparently really had. She thought about calling her sister Emma, but what would she say? She couldn't prove that Patricia had manipulated information from Dr. Martinez, and she couldn't accuse David of lying without admitting she had eavesdropped on a private conversation. But more than that, she realized that this was just the beginning. If David and Patricia were willing to deceive her about something as significant as her baby's gender, what else were they keeping from her? How many other decisions about her life and her child were being made without her knowledge or input? As her son moved and kicked inside her, she made a promise to both of them. She would not let this deception continue, and she would not let her child grow up in a family built on lies. But first, she needed to figure out exactly how deep the deception went and whether the man lying next to her was someone she could ever trust again. Meghan woke up the next morning with a plan forming in her mind. She had spent most of the night thinking about everything she had overheard, and by dawn, she had decided that she needed to know exactly what was going on before she confronted anyone. If David and Patricia were lying to her about the baby's gender, she needed to understand the full scope of their deception. David was already in the shower when she got up, humming cheerfully as if nothing had happened. The sound made her stomach turn. How could he be so casual about lying to her? How could he go about his morning routine as if he hadn't spent the previous evening discussing ways to manipulate his pregnant wife? "Good morning, beautiful," he said when he emerged from the bathroom, toweling his hair dry. "How did you sleep?" "Fine," she said, not trusting herself to say more. She busied herself with getting dressed for work, grateful that her job at the marketing firm would give her some space to think and plan. "I was thinking we could go baby shopping this weekend," David continued, putting on his tie. "Mom mentioned that there's some great sales going on at that boutique downtown. The one with all the fancy baby clothes." Meghan paused in the middle of brushing her hair. "Which boutique?" "You know, the one Mom always talks about. Little Angels or something like that. She says they have beautiful dresses and accessories." Of course, Patricia had suggested a store that specialized in girls' clothing. Meghan wondered how many other casual suggestions had actually been part of her mother-in-law's campaign to steer her toward expecting a daughter. "Maybe," she said noncommittally. "I was actually thinking we should wait until after the baby shower to do any major shopping. Emma's been working so hard on planning it." David's face brightened. "Oh, that reminds me. Mom called Emma yesterday to offer some help with the party planning." "Isn't that nice of her?" Meghan's grip tightened on her hairbrush. So Patricia was already working on manipulating the baby shower, just as she had mentioned to David. "What kind of help?" "I think just suggestions for themes and decorations and stuff. Mom knows a lot about party planning from all her charity events, where she knows exactly what gender the baby is and wants to make sure the gifts match her deception," Meghan thought grimly. "I should probably call Emma today to see how things are going." "That's a great idea," David said, kissing her cheek as he headed for the door. "I'll see you tonight. Love you." "Love you too," she replied automatically, but the words felt hollow in her mouth. Once David left for work, Meghan sat on the edge of their bed and tried to organize her thoughts. She needed information, and she needed it without anyone knowing what she was looking for. First on her list was calling Dr. Martinez's office. She dialed the number from memory, and waited for the receptionist to answer. "Good morning, Dr. Martinez's office. This is Sarah." "Hi, Sarah. This is Meghan Richardson. I have a question about my last appointment." "Of course, Mrs. Richardson. How can I help you?" Meghan took a deep breath. "I was wondering if there's any record of my mother-in-law, Patricia Richardson, being contacted about my pregnancy. I'm trying to update my emergency contact information." There was a pause. "Let me check your file. I see that you have Emma Richardson listed as your primary emergency contact and your husband David as secondary. There's no record of us contacting anyone else about your medical information. And you wouldn't release information about the baby's gender to anyone without my explicit consent, right?" "Absolutely not, Mrs. Richardson. That would be a violation of HIPAA laws. The only way anyone else would know that information is if you told them or if you sign a release form authorizing us to share it with specific people." Meghan felt a mix of relief and confusion. If Dr. Martinez's office hadn't told Patricia about the baby's gender, how did she know? "Thank you, Sarah. That's what I thought, but I wanted to confirm." After hanging up, Meghan sat staring at her phone. Patricia had definitely known the baby was a boy. She had heard her say so clearly. But if the information didn't come from Dr. Martinez, where had it come from? Then she remembered something Patricia had mentioned. Dr. Martinez was her golf partner's husband. What if Patricia had gotten the information through social connections rather than official medical channels? What if someone who worked at the medical office had casually mentioned it, not realizing they were violating privacy laws? Meghan decided her next step needed to be a conversation with her sister Emma. She needed to know exactly what Patricia had said about the baby shower and whether there had been any other suspicious comments. She called Emma's number and waited through several rings before her sister picked up. "Meghan, perfect timing. I was just working on the guest list for your shower." "I'm so excited." "That's actually why I'm calling," Meghan said carefully. "I heard that Patricia offered to help with the planning." "Oh yes, she called yesterday. She's so sweet, Meg. She had some really thoughtful suggestions about themes and decorations. She seems to think the baby might be a girl." Meghan's heart sank. What makes her think that? "I don't know, just mother's intuition, I guess." She kept talking about how wonderful it would be to have a little princess in the family. She even offered to contribute some decorations if we wanted to go with a pink and gold theme. Did she say anything else? Anything specific about why she thinks it's a girl? Emma laughed. "Nothing concrete, just that feeling that older women sometimes get. You know how Mom always claimed she could predict babies' genders just by looking at how the mother was carrying? Patricia seems to have the same confidence." Meghan relaxed slightly. It sounded like Patricia was being manipulative but hadn't actually revealed that she knew the gender for certain. "What did you tell her about the theme?" "I said we were planning to keep everything neutral since you wanted to be surprised." She seemed a little disappointed, but she understood. Although she did mention that if we changed our minds, she had connections with some really beautiful specialty shops that could pull together a princess theme on short notice. There was again the push toward expecting a girl. Meghan wondered how many other people Patricia had been planting these seeds with. "Emma, has anyone else made comments about thinking the baby is a girl? Any of Mom's friends or people from church?" "Now that you mention it, yes. Mrs. Henderson from Patricia's church stopped me at the grocery store last week and asked how I was feeling about getting a little niece. When I told her we didn't know the gender yet, she seemed surprised. She said Patricia had mentioned you were having a daughter." Meghan closed her eyes. Patricia had been spreading this lie widely enough that people were starting to expect it as fact. What exactly did Mrs. Henderson say? She said something about how Patricia had been showing off pictures of baby dresses at their last church luncheon. Apparently, she's been buying things for months and was very excited about her granddaughter. The scope of the deception was becoming clear. This wasn't just a private family decision to hide information from Meghan. Patricia had been actively telling people outside the family that she was expecting a granddaughter, creating a web of expectations that would make the eventual truth even more awkward and confusing. "Emma," Meghan said slowly, "if you found out that someone in the family was lying to me about something important, would you tell me?" There was a pause. "Of course I would. Meg, is everything okay? You sound worried." Meghan wanted desperately to tell her sister everything, but she wasn't ready yet. She needed more information first. Everything's fine. I'm just feeling a little overwhelmed lately. Pregnancy hormones, probably. Are you sure? Because if something's bothering you, you know you can talk to me about anything. I know, and I will when I'm ready. For now, I just need you to promise me something. Anything. Don't let anyone pressure you into making the baby shower too gender-specific. I really do want to keep things neutral until the baby arrives. Of course. That's what you've wanted from the beginning, and that's what we'll do. Although I have to admit, Patricia's enthusiasm is kind of infectious. She really seems to believe you're having a girl. After ending the call with Emma, Meghan felt more determined than ever to get to the bottom of the situation. Her next step was to figure out how Patricia had actually learned the baby's gender. If it hadn't come from Dr. Martinez directly, someone else with access to her medical information had shared it. She spent her lunch break at work researching HIPAA violations and patient privacy rights. What she learned made her angry all over again. If someone at Dr. Martinez's office had casually shared her medical information with Patricia, even through social conversation, it was a serious violation of federal law. But proving would be difficult unless she could get someone to admit what had happened. And confronting the issue officially would likely destroy her relationship with David's family permanently, especially if she was wrong about how the information had been obtained. When she got home that evening, David was already there, cooking dinner and humming the same cheerful tune he had been humming that morning. "How was your day?" he asked, kissing her cheek as she walked into the kitchen. "Fine. How was yours?" "Good. Oh, I talked to Mom this afternoon. She wanted to know if we'd thought any more about that shopping trip this weekend." Meghan set down her purse and studied her husband's face. "What'd you tell her?" "I said we'd probably wait until after the baby shower, like you suggested." She seemed disappointed, but she understood. He was lying again, and this time Meghan could see it clearly. There was something forced about his casual tone, something rehearsed about the way he delivered the information. She wondered if Patricia had coached him on what to say. "David," she said carefully, "do you ever worry about your mom being too involved in our business?" His hand paused in its stirring motion. "What do you mean?" "I mean, she has a lot of opinions about her pregnancy. Sometimes I feel like she's trying to influence our decisions." David resumed, stirring, not looking at her. "She's just excited about being a grandmother. It's her first grandchild, you know. She wants to be involved. But where's the line between being involved and being controlling?" Now he did look at her, and she could see defensiveness in his eyes. "I don't think my mother is controlling, Meg. She's helpful. There's a difference. Is it helpful when she tells people at church that we're having a daughter when we don't even know ourselves?" David went very still. "What are you talking about?" "Mrs. Henderson mentioned it to Emma. Apparently, your mother has been telling people we're expecting a girl." For a long moment, David said nothing. Then he shrugged, but Meghan could see tension in his shoulders. "Mom probably just misspoke. Or maybe Mrs. Henderson misunderstood. You know how church gossip can get twisted. Or maybe your mother knows something we don't," Meghan said quietly. David's face flushed. "That's impossible. We specifically told Dr. Martinez we didn't want to know." "We did. But that doesn't mean the information couldn't have gotten out some other way." "Meg, you're being paranoid. Mom doesn't know any more than we do. She's just excited and maybe getting a little carried away with her hopes and dreams." Meghan nodded, but she didn't believe him. His reaction had been too strong, too defensive. And the way he had hesitated before answering her questions told her that he was still hiding something. That night, as David slept beside her again, Meghan made another decision. She was going to call Dr. Martinez directly and ask for a private consultation. She was going to find out once and for all whether her baby was a boy or a girl, and she was going to discover exactly how that information had been compromised. But more importantly, she was going to start documenting everything. If her marriage was built on lies and manipulation, she needed to know the full extent of it before her son was born. Because she was not going to raise a child in a family where deception was considered acceptable, even if it meant making some very difficult choices about her future. The following morning, Meghan called Dr. Martinez's office first thing and scheduled an emergency appointment for that afternoon. She told Sarah she was experiencing some anxiety and needed to speak with the doctor privately about her concerns. When she arrived at the medical office, Dr. Martinez greeted her with his usual warm smile. "Mrs. Richardson, Sarah mentioned you were feeling anxious. Is everything all right with the baby?" Meghan settled into the chair across from his desk, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "Dr. Martinez, I need to ask you something very directly, and I need you to be completely honest with me." His expression grew more serious. "Of course. Has anyone contacted you or your staff asking about my baby's gender? Anyone besides David and myself?" Dr. Martinez frowned slightly. "No, absolutely not. As I've mentioned before, we take patient privacy very seriously." "Why do you ask?" Meghan took a deep breath. "Because my mother-in-law somehow knows that I'm having a boy." The doctor's face went pale. "That's impossible. We haven't released that information to anyone." "So it is a boy?" Meghan asked quietly. Dr. Martinez looked flustered. "Mrs. Richardson, you specifically requested not to know the gender. I haven't even put that information in your chart notes because of your wishes. But you do know what I'm having." He nodded reluctantly. "Yes, I can see it clearly on the ultrasounds. But I've been very careful not to mention it during our appointments. Dr. Martinez, I need you to tell me the truth. Is my baby a boy or a girl?" The doctor was quiet for a long moment, clearly struggling with the ethics of the situation. Finally, he spoke carefully. "Mrs. Richardson, if you're asking me to reveal the gender now because you've changed your mind about wanting to know, I can do that. But I want to make sure you're certain about this decision." "I'm certain. But first, I need to know how my mother-in-law could have found out this information if it didn't come from your office." Dr. Martinez looked genuinely puzzled. "I honestly don't know. The only people who would have access to that information would be the ultrasound technicians who were present during your scans, myself, and my nurse who assists with appointments. All of us are bound by strict confidentiality agreements." "What about social connections? Do any of your staff have relationships with my mother-in-law outside of work?" The doctor thought for a moment. "Well, my wife Patricia does golf with several women from the country club. It's possible that your mother-in-law is part of that group, but even if they know each other socially, my wife wouldn't have access to patient information." Meghan felt her heart sink. "Your wife's name is Patricia?" "Yes, Patricia Martinez." "What?" "My mother-in-law is Patricia Richardson. She told my husband that she found out about the baby's gender because you called her as an emergency contact, but when I checked with your office, there's no record of that call. Then, she mentioned that you were her golf partner's husband." Dr. Martinez's expression darkened. "Mrs. Richardson, I can assure you that I have never called your mother-in-law about anything. And while my wife does golf with a group of women, she would never have access to patient information, nor would she share it if she did. But it's possible they know each other. It's possible, but that doesn't explain how your mother-in-law would know about your baby's gender." The doctor paused, then added, "unless someone violated patient confidentiality laws." They sat in uncomfortable silence for a moment. Then, Dr. Martinez spoke again. "Mrs. Richardson, would you like me to tell you your baby's gender now?" "Yes," Meghan said firmly. "I think I have a right to know what everyone else apparently already knows." "You're having a boy," Dr. Martinez confirmed gently. "A healthy, active little boy who should arrive right on schedule." Even though she had overheard the truth 2 nights earlier, hearing it officially still made Meghan's eyes fill with tears. Not because she was disappointed about having a son, but because this moment should have been special. It should have been a joyful revelation shared with her husband, not a confirmation of a deception she had discovered by accident. "Mrs. Richardson, I'm very concerned about how this information could have been compromised. Would you be willing to let me investigate this matter further?" "What would that involve?" "I need to speak with my staff and review our procedures to see if there's any way patient information could have been inadvertently shared. If someone violated HIPAA laws, it's a serious matter that needs to be addressed." Meghan nodded. "Please do that. But I'd like to ask that you not mention this conversation to anyone, including my husband, until I decide how I want to handle the situation." Of course, patient confidentiality works both ways. When Meghan left the doctor's office, she felt both relieved and devastated. She finally knew the truth about her baby's gender, but she also knew for certain that David and Patricia had been actively lying to her for weeks, possibly months. Her next stop was a coffee shop where she could sit quietly and think about her next moves. As she settled into a corner booth with a decaf latte, her phone buzzed with a text from David. "How are you feeling today? Mom called and wants to take you shopping for baby clothes tomorrow if you're up for it." Meghan stared at the message, feeling a surge of anger. Patricia was still pushing her agenda, still trying to steer Meghan toward buying girl clothes for a baby she knew was a boy. The manipulation was relentless. She typed back, "I'm feeling okay. Not really in the mood for shopping, though." David's response came quickly. "Mom will be disappointed. She's really excited about helping us prepare for the baby. She can be excited without dictating how we spend our weekends," Meghan replied. There was a longer pause before David responded. "Is everything okay? You seem upset about something." Meghan almost laughed at the irony. Her husband was asking if she was upset while actively participating in a deception about their unborn child. "Just tired. We'll talk when you get home." She put her phone away and pulled out a notebook she had started carrying. Over the past few days, she had been documenting everything she could remember about Patricia's behavior and David's responses. Now she added the confirmation from Dr. Martinez and began to piece together a timeline. Looking at her notes, a pattern became clear. Patricia had been pushing the "it's a girl" narrative for almost 6 weeks, which meant she had somehow learned the truth early in Meghan's second trimester. The timing coincided with an appointment David had attended alone when Meghan had been sick with a stomach bug. Meghan remembered that appointment clearly because David had been unusually quiet afterward. When she had asked him about it, he had said everything looked good but had seemed distracted. At the time, she had attributed his mood to work stress. Now she wondered if that was when he had first learned they were having a boy. But that still didn't explain how Patricia had found out. Unless David had told her directly, which would mean the deception had been going on even longer than Meghan had realized. She spent the rest of the afternoon at the coffee shop, making phone calls and doing research. First, she called the country club and confirmed that both Patricia Richardson and Patricia Martinez were members of the same golf group. They had been playing together weekly for over a year. Next, she called a lawyer who specialized in medical malpractice to ask about HIPAA violations. The attorney explained that if medical information had been shared inappropriately, there could be serious consequences for the individuals involved, including fines and possible criminal charges. Armed with this information, Meghan felt more confident about her next confrontation. But first, she wanted to talk to Emma and get her sister's perspective on the situation. She drove to Emma's house and found her sister in the backyard, tending to her garden. "Meghan, this is a nice surprise," Emma said, pulling off her gardening gloves. "How are you feeling?" "Emma, I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen to the whole story before you react." Emma's expression grew concerned. "Okay, let's sit down." They settled on Emma's patio, and Meghan told her sister everything. The overheard conversation, the lies David had told, Patricia's manipulation of the baby shower planning, and her visit to Dr. Martinez that morning. When she finished, Emma sat in stunned silence for several minutes. "I can't believe this," Emma finally said. "I mean, I believe you, but I can't believe they would do something like this. Especially David. He's always seemed so honest." "That's what I thought too. But Emma, he's been looking me in the eye and lying to me for weeks. And it's not just about the gender. It's about respect and trust and the kind of marriage I thought I had. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. But I'm not going to let them continue this charade until the baby is born. Our son deserves better than to come into the world surrounded by lies." Emma reached over and squeezed Meghan's hand. "Whatever you decide to do, I'll support you. But, Meg, you need to think carefully about this. Confronting them could change everything." "Everything is already changed," Meghan said quietly. "I just didn't know it until 2 days ago." That evening, Meghan returned home to find David cooking dinner again. He seemed to be making an extra effort to be attentive and domestic, which only made her more suspicious about his motivations. "How was your day?" he asked, kissing her cheek. "Interesting," she said. "I had a doctor's appointment." David paused in his food preparation. "Everything okay with the baby?" "Everything's fine with the baby. But I learned some disturbing information about patient privacy and medical ethics. What kind of information? Meghan looked at her husband, really looked at him, trying to see past the familiar features to the person underneath. David, is there anything you want to tell me about our baby? His face went carefully blank. Like what? Like anything you might know that I don't know. Meg, I don't know what you're getting at. She realized in that moment that he was going to keep lying to her until she forced the truth out of him. The man she had married was not going to voluntarily come clean about his deception. David, she said quietly, I know we're having a boy. The wooden spoon he had been holding clattered to the floor. His face went white, and for a moment he looked like he might be sick. Ow, he whispered. Does it matter how? What matters is that you've been lying to me for weeks. You and your mother have been actively deceiving me about my own pregnancy. David sank into a chair, his head in his hands. Meghan, I can explain. I'm sure you can. But the question is whether anything you say now will be true, or if you'll just keep lying to cover up the lies you've already told. When David looked up at her, she saw something in his eyes she had never seen before. Fear. Not fear of her reaction, but fear of losing control of the situation. And that's when Meghan realized that this pattern of deception probably wasn't new. She was just noticing it for the first time. David sat at their kitchen table with his head in his hands for what felt like an eternity. When he finally looked up at Meghan, she could see the internal struggle playing out across his face as he calculated what version of the truth might do the least damage. Meghan, please sit down. Let me explain what happened. I'm fine standing, she said, crossing her arms over her belly. Go ahead and explain. David took a shaky breath. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I went to that appointment when you were sick and Dr. Martinez was doing the ultrasound. He was explaining different things about the baby's development, and he accidentally mentioned he when talking about the baby's position. Accidentally? I don't think he realized he had slipped. It was just a casual comment. But once I knew, David trailed off, looking miserable. Once you knew, you decided to lie to me about it? No, I mean, not at first. I was going to tell you, but then I talked to Mom about it, and she convinced me that it might be better to wait. Meghan felt her anger building. She convinced you? David, this is our baby. Our marriage. When did your mother become the decision-maker in our relationship? She's not. But Meg, she made some good points. You've been so stressed with work and the move and everything else. She thought finding out the gender might add more pressure. That's not her decision to make, and it's not yours either. I specifically told Dr. Martinez I wanted to wait until birth to find out. You agreed to support that decision. David stood up and tried to approach her, but Meghan stepped back. I was supporting it. I just thought maybe it would be better if we could prepare a little bit. Mom said it might actually reduce your stress if we could plan ahead. So you and your mother decided what was best for me without consulting me? You decided to manipulate my entire pregnancy experience based on what Patricia thought I could handle. It wasn't manipulation, it was protection. The words hung in the air between them, and Meghan could see the moment when David realized how they sounded. Protection, she repeated quietly. David, do you hear yourself? You're talking about protecting me from my own choices, from information about my own body and my own baby. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? Because from where I'm standing, it sounds like you and your mother decided I'm too fragile or too stupid to handle the truth about my pregnancy. Of course not. Meg, you're the smartest, strongest person I know. This wasn't about your intelligence or your strength. Then what was it about? David ran his hands through his hair, a gesture she had once found endearing, but now found irritating. I don't know. I was confused and scared, and Mom seemed so confident that she knew the right thing to do. Scared of what? Scared of being a father. Scared of making the wrong decisions. And when Mom offered to help guide things, it seemed like a relief to have someone who knew what they were doing. Meghan stared at her husband, seeing him clearly for perhaps the first time in their relationship. David, do you realize what you just said? You were scared of being a father, so you let your mother take control of my pregnancy. That's not. I mean, she didn't take control. She's been telling people at church that we're having a daughter. She's been influencing Emma about baby shower themes. She's been pushing me towards specific stores and specific types of baby clothes. She's been orchestrating a months-long deception about our child's gender. How is that not taking control? David looked genuinely surprised. She told people at church? She said she was just going to keep it between us. There's another lie she told you, David. Just like she lied when she said Dr. Martinez called her as an emergency contact. Just like she's probably lied about a dozen other things you haven't figured out yet. What do you mean? Meghan felt a moment of satisfaction at finally having information David didn't possess. I called Dr. Martinez's office. There's no record of him calling your mother about anything. And I had a private consultation with him today. He confirmed that we're having a boy, and he was very disturbed to learn that someone outside his office knew that information. David's face went pale again. But Mom said, your mother lied, David. The question is, how did she really find out? I don't know. Maybe Dr. Martinez forgot about calling her. Or maybe you told her yourself. I didn't. I swear I didn't tell her directly. Then, how did she know to call you the day after my appointment? How did she know exactly when to start her campaign about preparing for a daughter? David was quiet for a long moment. Then, in a very small voice, he said, I might have mentioned it when I was upset about keeping the secret from you. Might have. I called her that night after the appointment. I was feeling guilty about knowing something you didn't know, and I asked her what she thought I should do. I might have mentioned what I had found out. Meghan closed her eyes. So you did tell her. Not intentionally. I was asking for advice, and it slipped out. And then she convinced you to keep lying to me. She convinced me that waiting to tell you might be better for everyone. Better for everyone? Or better for her? David looked confused. What do you mean? David, your mother has been shopping for baby girl clothes for months. She's been telling people at church about her granddaughter. She's been planning a pink and gold theme for my baby shower. She has a lot invested in this baby being a girl. But she knows the boy now. She's been helping me figure out how to transition you toward being excited about having a son. Meghan laughed bitterly. Is that what she told you she was doing? Yes. She said she would gradually start mentioning positive things about boys so that when you found out a delivery, you'd be happy instead of disappointed. David, she's been doubling down on the girl narrative. She called Emma yesterday to push for a princess theme at the baby shower. She tried to convince you to take me shopping at a store that specializes in girl clothes. She's not preparing me for having a son. She's digging herself deeper into the deception. David sat back, down heavily. That doesn't make sense. Why would she do that? Because she doesn't want to admit she was wrong. Because she's already told too many people and invested too much in the idea of having a granddaughter. Because she's more concerned about saving face than she is about our family. She wouldn't, she's just excited about the baby. David, listen to yourself. You're still defending her even after you know she's been lying to both of us. The kitchen fell silent except for the sound of something burning on the stove. David jumped up to turn off the burner, and Meghan watched him fumble with the pan, looking lost and overwhelmed. I don't understand why this is such a big deal, he said finally. So we know the gender a little earlier than planned. So what? We're going to find out eventually anyway. Meghan felt something inside her snap. It's not about the gender, David. It's about the lying. It's about you and your mother deciding what I should and shouldn't know about my own pregnancy. It's about you choosing her opinion over my explicitly stated wishes. It's about you looking me in the eye for weeks and deceiving me. But I was trying to protect you. From what? From being happy about having a son? From making informed choices about her child? From having an honest relationship with my husband? David set down the ruined pan and turned to face her. I know I messed up, but Meg, this doesn't have to be a huge thing. We can just tell people we changed our minds about wanting to know. We can enjoy the rest of your pregnancy knowing we're having a boy. And what about the lying? What about your mother's manipulation? What about the fact that you've shown me that when push comes to shove, you'll side with her against me? I wasn't siding against you. Then what would you call it? David was quiet for a long moment. I don't know, he admitted. I was confused and scared, and I made a mistake. This wasn't a mistake, David. This was a series of conscious choices you made over several weeks. Every time I asked you about the baby's gender, you chose to lie to me. Every time your mother brought up girl clothes or pink decorations, you went along with it. Every time I expressed excitement about being surprised, you let me continue believing something you knew wasn't true. So what do you want me to do now? I can't change what happened. I want you to understand why this is such a big deal. I want you to see that this isn't just about baby gender reveals. This is about whether I can trust you to be honest with me about important things. This is about whether our marriage is a partnership or whether I'm just someone you manage along with your mother. David stared at her for a long moment. Meghan, you're being dramatic. It's not that serious. And there it was. The dismissal she had been expecting. The suggestion that her feelings were overblown, that her concerns were unreasonable. It was the same tone Patricia had used when discussing Meghan's unrealistic ideas about her pregnancy. I need some space, Meghan said quietly. I'm going to stay at Emma's tonight. Meg, come on. We can work this out. We don't need to make this into a bigger problem than it is. David, the problem isn't that I'm making this bigger than it is. The problem is that you still don't understand why it's a problem at all. She went upstairs and packed an overnight bag while David followed her around the house, alternately apologizing and minimizing what had happened. When she came back downstairs with her bag, he was waiting by the front door. Please don't go. Mom's coming over for dinner tomorrow night. We can all sit down and talk about this together. Meghan paused with her hand on the doorknob. David, the fact that your first instinct is to involve your mother in solving our marital problems tells me everything I need to know. She's family. She cares about both of us. She's your family. And she cares about controlling both of us. As Meghan drove to Emma's house, she thought about David's final comment. The assumption that his mother should be part of their marriage discussions, that Patricia's input was not only welcome, but necessary, revealed how deeply the problem went. This wasn't just about lying about baby gender. This was about fundamental questions of loyalty, autonomy, and respect. And based on David's reactions that evening, Meghan was beginning to suspect that her husband didn't see any of those things as problems. When she pulled into Emma's driveway, her sister was waiting on the front porch with a cup of tea and a concerned expression. I saw you driving up, Emma said, wrapping Meghan in a hug. How did it go? Worse than I expected, Meghan said. And that's saying something. Meghan spent 3 days at Emma's house, during which time David called constantly, and Patricia showed up twice unannounced, demanding to know why Meghan was creating drama during such an important time. Emma, to her credit, refused to let Patricia into the house both times and told David that Meghan would contact him when she was ready. On the morning of the 4th day, Meghan woke up to her phone buzzing with text messages. The first was from David. Please come home. We need to talk. The second was from Dr. Martinez. Mrs. Richardson, I've completed my investigation into how your medical information was compromised. Could you please call my office at your earliest convenience? Meghan made the call while Emma was at work, giving her privacy to process whatever she was about to learn. Mrs. Richardson, thank you for calling. I'm afraid I have some disturbing news about how your baby's gender information was shared. What did you find out? It appears that my wife inadvertently mentioned your pregnancy details during a social conversation with her golf group. She had overheard me on a phone call with my nurse about your case and mistakenly thought the information was general office discussion. She mentioned to the group that Dr. Martinez had a patient expecting a boy without realizing it was a violation of privacy. Meghan's heart sank. So Patricia found out through your wife? It appears so. My wife is mortified and has submitted her resignation from the golf group. She had no idea that Mrs. Richardson was part of the group or that the patient she mentioned was Mrs. Richardson specifically. But once Mrs. Richardson heard the details, she apparently put together that it was your case. What happens now? My wife will be attending mandatory HIPAA training, and we're reviewing all of our office procedures to ensure this type of accidental disclosure never happens again. I'm also prepared to file an official incident report if you choose to pursue this matter legally. Meghan thought for a moment. Dr. Martinez, I appreciate your investigation and your wife's honesty. I don't want to pursue legal action, but I do want documentation of how this happened in case I need it later. Of course, I'll prepare a summary of my findings for your records. After ending the call, Meghan felt a strange mix of vindication and sadness. She had been right that Patricia had obtained the information improperly, but the revelation didn't make her feel better about the situation. If anything, it confirmed that Patricia was the type of person who would take advantage of accidentally overheard information to manipulate her family. That afternoon, David showed up at Emma's house while Meghan was sitting in the backyard. "Emma, let me in," he said, settling into the chair across from her. She said, "You might be ready to talk." "I am. But first, I need you to listen to something." Meghan told him about Dr. Martinez's investigation and findings. As she spoke, she watched David's face cycle through surprise, anger, and, finally, resignation. "So Mom did manipulate the situation," he said quietly when she finished. "Yes. And, David, she knew exactly what she was doing. She heard information about a patient expecting a boy, figured out it was me, and then built an entire deception around it. This wasn't innocent excitement about her grandchild. This was calculated manipulation." David was quiet for a long time. "I keep thinking about what she said that night you overheard us, about how you're hormonal and don't think clearly when you're pregnant." "What about it?" "I've been thinking about other things she said over the years, about women in general, about you specifically. I'm starting to realize that she doesn't really respect you as a person." It was progress, but Meghan wasn't ready to celebrate yet. "And how does that make you feel?" "Angry, disappointed, confused about why I didn't see it before." "David, she doesn't just disrespect me. She disrespects your ability to make decisions as a grown man. She manipulates you just as much as she manipulates me, just in different ways." David nodded slowly. "I know, and I hate that I let it happen. But Meg, what do we do now? How do we fix this?" Meghan looked at her husband, really studied his face. She could see genuine remorse there, but she could also see fear. He was afraid of confronting his mother, afraid of setting boundaries, afraid of the changes that would need to happen if their marriage was going to survive. "David, I need you to understand that this isn't just about your mother anymore. This is about us, about whether we can build a marriage based on honesty and mutual respect, or whether we're going to keep living in this pattern where outside influences control our relationship. I want to build something honest with you. Ido. Then prove it." How? Meghan had spent the past 3 days thinking about exactly this question. "First, you need to have a conversation with your mother. You need to tell her that she overstepped boundaries, that the lying stops now, and that she needs to respect our decisions as parents." David shifted uncomfortably. "She's not going to take that well." "I'm sure she won't. But, David, if you can't stand up to your mother for your wife and your child, then we have bigger problems than I thought. What if she gets angry? What if she threatens to cut us off from the family? Then you'll know where her priorities really lie, and you'll have to decide where yours lie too." David was quiet for several minutes. "What else?" "We need to see a counselor. Both of us, together. We need to learn how to communicate better and how to set boundaries with family members." "Okay, I can do that. And, David, no more secrets. No more protecting me from information about my own life. No more consulting your mother about decisions that should be made between us. If you can't commit to complete honesty going forward, then we need to start talking about separation." The word hung in the air between them like a physical presence. David's face went pale. "Separation? David, I'm about to have a baby. Our son is going to be born in 2 months. I will not raise him in a household where deception and manipulation are normal. I will not teach him that it's acceptable to lie to people you love because you think you know what's best for them. Meghan, I don't want a separation. I want our marriage to work. Then, show me. Don't just tell me you want it to work. Show me that you're willing to do the work required to make it work." David reached across the small table and took her hand. "I will. I promise I will." "David, your promises don't mean much to me right now. I need to see actions." That evening, David called his mother and asked her to come over for a conversation. Meghan listened from the kitchen as he explained that they knew about the deception and that it needed to stop. Patricia's reaction was exactly what Meghan had expected. Loud, defensive, and full of justifications. "I was trying to help. I was trying to make things easier for everyone." Mom, you lied to us. You manipulated Meghan's entire pregnancy experience based on information you shouldn't have had. Oh, please, David. She would have found out eventually anyway. What's the big deal? The big deal is that it wasn't your choice to make. This is our baby, our marriage, our life. You don't get to decide what Meghan should or shouldn't know about her own pregnancy. I can't believe you're taking her side against your own mother. Meghan heard David take a deep breath. I'm not taking sides, Mom. I am drawing boundaries. From now on, Meghan and I make decisions about our family together. We'll welcome your input when we ask for it, but we won't tolerate manipulation or deception. You're being ridiculous, and you're letting that woman turn you against your family. Mom, Meghan is my family now. She and this baby are my priority. If you want to be part of our lives, you need to respect that. There was silence for a long moment. Then Patricia spoke again, her voice cold and controlled. I see. Well, I suppose I know where I stand now. Mom, it doesn't have to be like this. We want you to be part of the baby's life. But it has to be on terms that respect our marriage and our decisions as parents. We'll see about that. Meghan heard the front door slam, and a few minutes later David appeared in the kitchen doorway. He looked exhausted but also relieved. How do you feel? Meghan asked. Scared, sad, but also kind of free, if that makes sense. It makes perfect sense. She's going to make things difficult for a while. Probably. Are you prepared for that? David nodded. I think so. And if I'm not, I want to learn to be. Meg, I've scheduled an appointment with a marriage counselor for next week. I also want to start seeing someone individually to work on the family dynamic issues. It was more than Meghan had expected, and for the first time in days, she felt a flicker of hope. What made you decide to do individual therapy too? Something you said earlier about her manipulating me just as much as she manipulates you. I realized I don't even know who I am as a person separate from what my mother wants me to be. I want to figure that out before our son is born. 3 weeks later, Meghan and David were sitting in their newly painted nursery, assembling a crib and talking about names for their son. The room was decorated in soft greens and yellows with touches of blue, a compromise that felt authentic to both of them. Patricia had not spoken to them since the confrontation, despite David's attempts to reach out. It was painful, but it was also peaceful in a way Meghan hadn't expected. Do you think she'll come around? David asked, wrestling with a particularly complicated piece of crib hardware. I don't know. Do you want her to? David considered the question carefully. I want her to be part of our son's life, but only if she can respect our boundaries. I don't want him growing up thinking it's normal for family members to lie to each other or manipulate each other. That's a good answer. I've been thinking about what kind of father I want to be, David continued. I want to be someone our son can trust completely. Someone who tells him the truth, even when it's difficult. Someone who respects his autonomy as he grows up. You will be, Meghan said, and she meant it. The past few weeks of therapy had been difficult, but they had also revealed a David she hadn't seen before. A man who was willing to examine his own behavior and make hard changes for the sake of their family. Her phone buzzed with a text from Emma. How's the crib assembly going? Need me to come over with reinforcements? Meghan smiled and typed back. We've got it handled. But save some energy for next week's baby shower prep. Emma had completely redesigned the baby shower after learning about Patricia's deception. Instead of the manipulated pink and gold theme Patricia had been pushing for, they were having a welcome baby boy celebration in blues and greens with a focus on books and practical gifts. Are you nervous about the shower? David asked. A little. It's going to be the first big family event since everything happened. Patricia had not RSVP'd to the baby shower invitation, though several of David's aunts and cousins had. The family was clearly divided about the situation, with some supporting Patricia and others expressing concern about her behavior. Whatever happens, we'll handle it together, David said, finally getting the crib rail to lock into place. Together, Meghan agreed. As they worked side by side preparing for their son's arrival, Meghan reflected on how much had changed in just a few weeks. The marriage she had thought she had was gone, but in its place was something more honest and more intentional. It was messy and more complicated, but it was also more real. She still didn't know if they would be able to rebuild their relationship with Patricia or whether their son would grow up with a grandmother who respected boundaries. But she knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, she and David would face them as true partners with honesty and mutual respect as their foundation. When their son kicked strongly against her ribs, both Meghan and David felt it. They looked at each other and smiled, sharing the moment completely and honestly the way she had always imagined it would be. "He's going to be loved so much," David said softly. "Yes," Meghan replied, "and he's going to be raised with truth." It wasn't the family dynamic she had originally envisioned, but it was the one their son deserved. And as challenging as the past month had been, Meghan found herself looking forward to the future with hope and confidence. They had learned to choose each other over convenience, truth over comfort, and their growing family over external expectations. Their son would be born into a family that valued honesty above all else, even when that honesty was difficult. And Meghan couldn't think of a better gift to give him.